Today on the show, I'll be covering a couple of movies that were requested by listeners, starting with Never Back Down from 2008 and Demolition Man from 1993. Alright everyone, welcome to Brandon at Random Reviews. I am your host, Brandon Griffiths. Thank you for stopping by. I do appreciate it. Today on the show, I think I'm just going to dive right into these movies. I'm not going to warm up or anything like that because life's too short and you want to know what I thought of these movies. So we'll start with Never Back Down, released on March 14th, 2008, directed by Jeff Wadlow, written by Chris Hauty, H-A-U-T-Y, produced by Craig Baumgarten and David Zillan, and a score that was composed by Michael Wandmacher. So for our cast, we have Sean Ferris, who plays Jake the Gridiron Tyler, which, by the way, he rarely gets called that in the movie. And then we have Amber Heard, who plays the character Baha Miller, and then Cam Gigander, who plays the character Ryan the Terror McCarthy. Then we have Jaman Hunsu, who plays Jean Roqua. Then there is Evan Peters, who plays Max Cooperman, and he is actually notable as he played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, the newer ones. And I think he's really great in those movies. I really liked his part in those movies. So plot synopsis. We have a high schooler who struggles with getting into fights, gets into another fight and loses, and trains to fight so he can fight better. Yes, that's it. We start at like a football game. I don't really know who's in this movie, going into it. So I'm really struggling to figure out who I'm rooting for and who I'm supposed to be focusing on. It also helps that this Sean Ferris is not somebody I've seen in anything before, so I really don't know who he is or what he's doing. Basically, something gets said about Sean Ferris's dad, and there's clearly some history there, and Sean, flips out and gets into a fight on this football field, and, it's like an all-out brawl, and so it's like hilarious watching movies like this where there's a large group of people brawling because there's always a few people on screen that are like apprehensively standing around, barely doing anything in the way of fighting, like they're just kind of pawing around a little bit and that's about it. So I don't know. It's funny. It was a little thing I noticed. Apparently our main guy, Jake Tyler is his name, which is 2 first names, by the way. He is moving to Orlando, and it's basically, I guess, so his brother can play tennis at a more skilled level or something. So I guess that's what's happening. And we're to understand that Jake's dad has passed away in some, unexpected situation. There's a lot of tension at home between Jake and Jake's mom. His mom's pretty clearly fed up with his shit. She doesn't really want to deal with him anymore, and it's just kind of, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of tension. Him and his brother are talking while they're packing up the garage before they move, and they find what I guess is supposed to be their dad's stuff, and Jake packs it up to get rid of it. And I don't remember at what point, but I don't think I noted this, but it's said that basically Jake's dad was driving with Jake in the passenger seat, and he gets into a car accident and the dad doesn't survive, and Jake lives, and, people ask him things like, why weren't you driving? Like, why didn't you get in the driver's seat? Why would you, let that happen? Blah, blah, blah. So he's got a lot of demons to face. The acting is not great in this movie, but it's not like horrendously bad. It's not like a horrendously terrible display. So Jake goes to school for the first time, and he tries to intervene in what appears to be a school fight club, but nobody's talking about it, obviously. So he kind of befriends this guy that was in the fight and was getting his ass kicked. And that guy is Evan Peters' character, Max. And so they slowly become friends. And then in one of his classes, Jake meets Amber Heard, who is playing the character as Baha. That's her name. It's not at all ridiculous. And I get the feeling that Jake and Baha will meet again after this for some strange, crazy reason. I don't know why, but I just feel like it's going to happen. And we get another argument between Jake and his mom when they get home because, Jake broke up this fight. So, it's like a problem. And apparently it's a thing that Jake does a lot. So it's kind of interesting. So thinking about his last name, being Tyler, Jake Tyler, it's like I had this friend that I worked with. I'm still friends with him, I guess. I haven't talked to him in like 10 plus years, but this guy named Scott Brandon was working with me at a Meijer in town here. And so he always was enamored by the fact that his name was, his last name was a first name. And it was always kind of weird. It's just like Mama Brandon and Papa Brandon. It just sounded weird. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of ridiculous. It kind of threw me for a loop. So Max, the guy from the fight, Max, walks up to Jake and he starts talking to Jake about his history and all the stuff that he found out about Jake on the web. And, Jake and him become fast friends. And honestly, it's at this point, and I'm going to point it out several times, so please forgive me, the soundtrack in this movie is fucking terrible. It is a horrible fucking soundtrack. Every song is like, I don't know, what would happen if the guy that did the soundtrack for The Fast and the Furious, the first one, had a baby with Fred Durst and they picked the soundtrack for a movie. Like, that's really what it's all about to me. Like, they pick these really loud songs and they don't seem to have any idea, of anything about sound mixing and, how to lower the volume levels and things like that. It's all very unsettling. It just jars you right out of your seat, you're just like, what the fuck is this? Why can't they fucking cool it on the fucking soundtrack? I was starting to see, as we got more of Amber Heard on screen, I was starting to realize why I haven't seen more Amber Heard movies. I don't think she's particularly good. I don't think she does an amazing job of acting, and it really just it explains everything, you know what I mean? On top of her presumably being a terrible person, that's neither here nor there, though. So Jake gets invited by Baha, Amber Heard's character, to a party, and he thinks she's into him, so she wants him to go to a party. And what it turns out to be is he is just like a lamb being led to the slaughter. So he has to go there and he gets in a fight with the head jock guy that's all fucking ripped out and stuff and fights dirty and all this shit. And so he just he gets his ass kicked. He goes home and he gets yelled at by his mom some more. And they want to pick a fight with him because they know everybody in the school now knows his past. They know what this guy has done and what run-ins he's had and things like that. And it's like the guy, Max, I was trying to figure out while I was watching this movie, it didn't look like, it looks like maybe he thinned out for the X-Men movies, but then again, I don't know what year those newer X-Men movies were coming out. I want to say it was about this time, so this might be in the same ballpark where he would have been playing Quicksilver, so maybe it's just he looks different in this movie, I don't know. I will say, though, that Evan Peters was a far better Quicksilver than Aaron Taylor Johnson was in the Avengers Age of Ultron. And he was just a lot cooler of a character. Aaron Taylor Johnson didn't really do any acting or, try, it seemed like. So now, given what little I knew about the movie at this point, he's just going to train to be a better fighter so that he can ultimately fight this guy and win, I guess that's his game plan. And the next day at school, Baja is kind of annoyed with the chatter about Jake going on. People are talking shit about him because he lost this fight to this Ryan guy. And it's just kind of insane. We get more of the soundtrack that's just super unpleasant. We get some... I put down, we get some really good writing coming through in the dialogue, and I believe I was being facetious because it's terrible. Like, the writing is not great. It's not particularly good. I don't really think it's all that terrific. So Max tells Jake about this place to train, and he's gonna go there and he's gonna learn how to fight. But the whole thing is like this guy from Blood Diamond, Jimon Hansu, plays the guy that owns the shop, the gym or whatever, and he is talking and like he's telling him basically that Jake is not to fight outside of those four walls. He's supposed to keep it together and be cool outside of there, and he's not supposed to use the training as a means to fight. It's supposed to just be like self-defense or whatever you want to call it. I know, like, I kept seeing throughout this movie that, like, I couldn't look at Amber Heard objectively without thinking of the trial and, like, the antics that she had. And so it kind of ruined her for me. Like, she's probably, like, early 20s in this movie, and she's a pretty girl, but she's too young anyway to be on my radar. And it's just, it ruined it for me knowing that it was Amber Heard and that this was how she behaved and all this stuff. And we get a training montage pretty early in the movie. There's over an hour left in this movie, and it's like they're doing this montage, and I'm like, well, you can't possibly be getting like to where you want to be this early in the movie. Where's the rest of the plot going to come from? And they're like flipping tractor tires, as you frequently see done in movies. And I don't know how much of that goes on in real life, but I don't know. I mean, my dad's a big tractor puller, so like he could probably tell me like how much weight that would be like lifting. And I assume it's quite a bit. So it's probably a reasonable training method. It's just funny. It's like so cliche now to do this stuff with a tractor tire. It's just like at this point I'm noticing that like the writing is pretty one-dimensional. It's not really breaking new ground on anything. It's just kind of retreading old stuff. And it's like, Jake and Baja argue in class over her leading him to the slaughter at the party, which is fair because that's absolutely what she did. She knew that was going to happen. And I just noted Blood Diamond is a solid movie, which, by the way, I might cover that. I haven't watched it in a really long time. I might even create like a new tag for those episodes where I do revisits, where it's like, it's not that I've never seen the movie, it's just that I don't remember the movie at all. So I just, am rewatching it, but it feels like the first time, like Foreigner. And it's at this point that they basically show that Baja and Ryan are together. And I don't know if you had that pointed out sooner than this, but I guess they like hid that fact so that it would be seemingly innocent when Baja gave Jake the invitation to the the party that he ended up getting in a fight at. And I feel like these jokes that keep coming up, or like not even jokes, but just like these jabs, these verbal jabs that come up in this movie, where it's like they're talking about Jake's dad, and it's like it just sets him off. Like that's all it is. It's just like an automatic, easy thing for them to do, that they can talk about his dad, and it's like, yeah, this is gonna piss him off. You know what I mean? Like that's what it feels like anyway. And so it's just like they use it to their advantage. It's like if they want to start a fight with him, they're just like, yeah, too bad your old man was a piece of shit, and like boom, everybody's fucking fighting. There's a moment where Jake figures out that John, Jimon Hansu's character, is seemingly living in this gym. He like has like a little place carved out in there, and it's kind of a ridiculous, like Jake makes fun of him for living there, and it's like, am I supposed to be on board with this kind of behavior? Like who, like he's supposed to be the nice guy. He's not supposed to be saying shit like the Ryan character would be saying, you know what I mean? So it just kind of upset me, like, just like, why did we include that? You know, like, why did we make it where he has this dig at John, who is, you know, a nice guy. He's helping him train. He's, you know, doing everything that he can for him. And it's like, I just don't understand what their rationale was for that. Jake gets into a fight with these dudes at a traffic stop, and Max takes video of it, and it goes viral at school. And, you know, like, the songs, they keep fucking playing these loud-ass douchey songs. I can't fucking stand them. But, like, you know, like, he goes back, and I don't think I have this noted, but he goes back to the gym, you know, and after he gets in this fight, his hands are all bruised up and bloody, and he puts on his gloves to try and hide it, and Jean figures out that he's been fighting, and he kicks him out because that was his, like, big rule, was, like, you don't get in fights. And I don't know, like, I honestly don't know what the fuck was going on. Like, I mean, I don't know why. I get it. Like, it was inevitable that it was going to happen, where it's like, you know, Jean says no fighting, and Jake is inevitably going to fight and, like, get kicked out and have to redeem himself and stuff. But we get another montage, a training montage, and this is number 2, and I don't know why. Like, why did we get the first training montage? It doesn't really make any sense. You really should only get one montage, like Rocky IV, perfect training montage. There's only one of them. It's an 1.5 hour long movie, and that's it. The training scenes don't really do much to fascinate me in this movie. They're not very exciting. They're not very interesting. They're just pretty generic, and they don't really stand out from the pack. I've seen dozens of movies with training montages before, and this did very little in the way of creativity to make it stand out. So at this point, we go, you know, Jake decides he's going to be a good big brother and go to his little brother's tennis tournament, and he goes there and cheers him on. And then, like, Jake and Baja, I feel so ridiculous saying that name every time, but whatever. They make up, and it's, like, super underwhelming. It's just like, yeah, okay, that was inevitable, you know, that was gonna happen. And Jake's mom goes and sees Sean at the gym and expresses her concerns with John, and John explains that it's like, you know, we're doing this to make these young men less angry and, like, less wanting to fight. You know, they have an outlet for it, and she kind of gets it, but she, like, pays for a month of, you know, the gym membership or whatever that he's got. Jake and Baja, they're, like, playing around in Jake's room, and they're clearly about to fuck, and then you get the little brother breaking into the room, and like, he's got a phone call for, you know, from the mom and for Jake, and so it kind of ends that. And so, and like, the little brother doesn't even knock or anything, and it's like, yeah, I feel like my little brother, if I had one, would know never to fucking come in my room unannounced if I was a high schooler, you know, like, come the fuck on. Like, there are so many things I could be doing in there. And so they basically, Ryan comes and he sees Max leaving the gym, and he convinces Max to come hang out with him and the guys that he hangs out with at his house. And, you know, basically it's pretty clear that Ryan's going to use this encounter with Max to ignite a fire under Jake's ass to want to fight him. And so he goes and beats the shit out of Max at his house, and Max has to go in the hospital, and, you know, Jake's freaking out because, you know, he can't believe they did it to him and all this stuff. And with 30 minutes to go in the movie, I really didn't care what happened to anyone else other than Max, because Max is the only character that is, like, actually kind of enjoyable. Like, I think he's underused here, but, you know, that's just me. So Jake gives this speech to John about, like, doing what he wants to do, you know, as far as fighting, and how, you know, he needs to do it and all this stuff, and it's pretty uninspired. It's actually not as bad as I've been making it sound like it is, but it's just, it's very, very disappointing. Like, it's just very plain and overdone. This movie, I said, was the battle cry of wannabe tough guys in my notes, because it is. I mean, it's like the Fast and the Furious, but with MMA fighting instead of cars. So if that helps bridge the gap in your mind of like what this movie's all about. And MMA never really piqued my interest much, so I don't really give a shit about watching it. And Jake realizes, they're going to go to this tournament, this big tournament with a big crowd. And he basically figures out that like Ryan, I guess, like that got disqualified or something. So like he's not going to be able to fight Ryan. And so they basically like Jake just taps out and elects not to finish, because that wasn't why he didn't want to come there to fight for pleasure. It was like he wanted to fight Ryan and get it over with. And so he goes out in the parking lot and he has a big run-in with Ryan. There's a big fight, and, eventually, obviously, Jake wins, because that was the only thing that was ever going to happen. It's kind of underwhelming. My only real praise for this movie is Evan Peters. I really like him in this. And I mean, I guess the guy who plays Ryan, he's a good villain. I'll give him that. The biggest criticism is the soundtrack. I cannot stress enough how horrendous this fucking soundtrack is. And it just pretty much tipped a mediocre to bad movie into like unwatchability. Like, I was to the point where I'm like, all right, I want to shut this off. The writing is bad, as I mentioned. It's not very compelling. I'm not very interested in seeing Jake redeem himself. I don't know. I just don't give a shit. So, trivia, Sean Ferris, who plays Jake, gained 15 pounds of muscle for the role. The actors who had to fight in this movie went through 3 months of MMA training for their roles. A little IMDb nugget. Gillian Jacobs auditioned for the role of Baja. Jacobs said that director Jeff Wadlow remarked that her audition reminded him of Christopher Walken. She did not get the part. It's almost like you could have gone without saying she did not get the part, because she auditioned for a role that was clearly played by somebody else, so did you really have to say it? But anyway, the Christopher Walken thing was pretty funny to me. Info and ratings, we got runtime 115 minutes, which is probably too long for this movie. They could have really trimmed the fat a lot on this movie. The budget was $20 million. Worldwide gross, $41.6 million. IMDb rating, 6.5. Rotten Tomato critics score, 22%. Rotten Tomato audience score, 34%. And personal rating, 2 out of 5 stars. I cannot recommend this movie. It's not good. I don't know if Ashton, when you suggested this movie, if it was like, I know that's kind of your sense of humor, so like, maybe it was a joke, but maybe you really do enjoy this. I mean, I enjoyed the first Fast and the Furious movie, so I guess it's a fair argument that it's like, I mean, you could enjoy it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna judge you for it. It's just, I'd love to know if you were fucking with me and you were gonna make me watch a bad movie just for the fuck of it. All right, moving on to Demolition Man. Okay, released on October 8th, 1993, directed by Marco Brambilla, written by Daniel Waters, Robert Renaud, and Peter Lenkoff. Producers Joel Silver, Michael Levy, and Howard Kazanjian. The score was composed by Elliot Goldenthal. Cast: Sylvester Stallone plays Sergeant John Spartan. Yes, that's a name. Wesley Snipes plays Simon Phoenix. Sandra Bullock plays Lieutenant Lenina Huxley. Benjamin Bratt plays Officer Alfredo Garcia, which is also a name. Dennis Leary plays Edgar Friendly. And Rob Schneider plays, I guess he was uncredited as Officer Irwin or Edwin or something like that. But Rob Schneider is super annoying in this movie for what little part he has. A little bit of casting notes. Steven Seagal had originally been attached as a leading actor in this movie. Jean-Claude Van Damme had been offered the part of the villain. Stallone wanted Jackie Chan for the part of Phoenix, but Chan said no because it was a villain, and apparently Chinese audiences really don't like it when a guy who always plays a good guy switches and becomes a bad guy in another movie, like they really don't go for it. So I don't blame Jackie Chan for even a little bit of that. Okay, plot synopsis. A police officer is brought out of suspended animation in prison to pursue an old ultra-violent nemesis who is loose in a non-violent future society. Okay, that's from IMDb. I did not write that. I could not think of a good one to put for that. So, just forgive me for that. So this movie starts off with a shot from behind the Hollywood sign, and it's on fire, and it says it's 1996, which would be 3 years after this movie was made. The score kind of feels like a Batman Forever score, but I didn't really look up to see who made the score to this movie. It could be the same guy, I don't know. John Spartan finds Simon Phoenix, and he is, Spartan's standing in a puddle of gasoline, and Phoenix is threatening to light it on fire, and he does, but Stallone still apprehends him, and he thinks that, he goes in there, and, basically the whole premise is Stallone goes in there, and he scans it, he does a thermal scan of the entire building, and he can't find anybody in there other than, Phoenix's goons, and it's kind of I guess what ends up happening is Phoenix had already killed the hostages that he had, and so that's why they didn't show up on the thermal thing. And so basically, although Stallone apprehends Phoenix, I should say Spartan apprehends Phoenix, he still goes to jail for manslaughter for allowing the death of, all these hostages because they don't realize that they were already dead. And so he gets sentenced to 46 years or something like that in prison. And I don't remember what exactly it was, but the acting in the opening sequence it really sets the tone for the movie. The acting is so fucking bad in this movie. I don't really understand what they were going for because it'd be different if the people in the future acted differently, but the people from the past should act like normal people. You know what I mean? They shouldn't be fucking weird and all this shit. And I guess some of it was probably a choice by Stallone and Snipes, but they do the thing that I always like to point out where, Snipes says something to piss Stallone off and Stallone comes to attack him and they hold him back. And I'm like, God fucking damn it. Why does that always have to be a thing? They punish Spartan to 70 years in cryopenitentiary. So they'll freeze him, even though it seems like that would perpetuate his life beyond normal span. If that, you know what I'm saying? If you're doing 70 years of time and you're not frozen, that's a long fucking time. But presumably, if you get frozen, it's you're going to be under for however long, and then you're going to have been preserved, and it's you can just pick up right where you left off. You know what I mean? What the fuck is that? They don't even and they show Stallone going under, Spartan is... It feels so dumb to say his name out loud, but anyway, Spartan is being frozen, and they don't even knock him out. They don't put him under or anything. He's just alive, and he's being put in this giant bowl of fluid. I don't know if it's water or what, but it's they're freezing him solid, and they're not knocking him out, and it's fucking ridiculous. And through the opening credits, they do this weird panning around, looking at Stallone in this frozen state, and it's kind of ridiculous. And then we come to 2032, where Sandra Bullock is here in her self-driving car, and so it's not too far off, because self-driving cars, I think in 10 years will be a lot more commonplace, They've got graffiti detection systems at the police station, they graffiti this police headquarters sign, and then this device wipes it clean again. It's pretty ridiculous. I said hopefully there isn't some ridiculous story about wiping your ass with seashells in this movie. Oh right, that's exactly what there is in this movie, because I have seen this movie before this viewing, so I do know what to expect. So basically, the other note I want to make is that Los Angeles has become San Angeles, because I think it's a combination of San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino or something like that. I don't remember what the other San was. I think it was that. But so there's no swearing allowed in the future. You get issued a citation every time you swear, you have to pay like 1 credit or something. And Sandra Bullock's character is named Huxley, and she really wants, like, she's a fangirl of the old 80s and 90s action movies and stuff, and she really wants to, to see that happen in her lifetime where these crazed criminals and all this chaos reigns supreme. It's just kind of like a fantasy of hers. They keep showing these chairs at the cryo lab, and they look like giant cheese graters. Like, they don't look like anything I've ever seen in my life. Like, they are such a stupid design, but it's gotta be on purpose. Like, it looks way too much like a cheese grater to not be on purpose. So Phoenix breaks out of, they're doing his parole hearing, and he breaks out and he kills the guards and gets out using the eye of the dude who was conducting the hearing. And they call it a 187 because he killed these guards, and they have to look up what a 187 is at the police station because they haven't encountered it. They don't know what it is. They're not familiar, and they find out that it's a murder death kill, MDK, and it's like murder death kill. Why couldn't it just be one of those? Like murder or why did it have to be murder death kill? That's so fucking stupid. So I always just love this because Phoenix goes and he is at this like weird kiosk in public where this guy was like standing at it, and like the kiosk was like complimenting him and telling him how great he was and all this stuff. And like Phoenix doesn't really, like, he knocks the guy out and like starts to take over the kiosk. And like, I just love how every criminal in these movies seems to know how to hack into anything. It's like if Wesley Snipes, if Simon Phoenix was an amazing hacker in his day, it would still be 36 years later that he would be hacking into this computer. So like, why would so much stuff, like, I can tell you right now, 36 years ago, there would be nothing familiar about computers. You know what I mean? The way that you would hack into them or anything. There's just so much extra shit now. So it's like, I find it really hard to believe, but they love to do that trope where the bad guy knows computers. Phoenix takes out the whole team of police officers that are there to apprehend him, and they basically like take these cues from these like handheld tablets that are explaining to them what to do to apprehend him. And he basically just like does not listen to what they're saying and doesn't give a shit. And, repeatedly throughout this movie, anytime anybody's saying a swear word, it's like doing this like buzzer noise, and it's issuing a citation out of this dispenser somewhere, and it's just fucking insane. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's supposed to be funny, which I guess in a way it is. So Friendly is the name of Dennis Leary's character, and he doesn't like the fact that these people are in control and they're not allowing anybody to, basically, like, how do I want to put this? It's like he doesn't like that they're outlawing so many things, like you can't eat food that's bad for you. You can't, it's like he wants to eat a cheeseburger. He wants to do this. He wants to do that. And it's like, it's pretty fucking ridiculous. They find out from the resident elder officer that Spartan was the one who originally stopped Phoenix. So they decide to unfreeze Spartan, and they try to explain to Spartan how life is in the future and that they want his help in apprehending Phoenix. And this is where we get the story about the 3 seashells, because there's no toilet paper in the bathrooms. They just somehow use these 3 seashells to scrape their butthole clean, I guess. I don't know. Like, how are they cleaning them? Anyway, the captain is not really a John Spartan fan, and he believes he's just as bad as Phoenix, so he's very apprehensive about letting Spartan do his thing. Phoenix goes to a museum to get a gun, because, like, the guns that you'd put in a museum wouldn't be, like, decommissioned so that nobody could use them, so he just goes there, and of course they're, like, loaded and ready to go, and it's like, okay. Honestly, there are, like, some cheesy choices for future tech in this movie, but like they're not all terrible. Like, they're not all that ridiculous. It's just, it's a lot easier in retrospect to be able to see like where the world is going, when it's 2022 right now, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny when movies actually do get some stuff right. The guy walks up to, there's this like museum guard that walks up to Simon Phoenix at the museum and says, "Fellow, greetings, what seems to be your boggle?" And I wish I could like actually work that into a conversation, but I don't think I could. There's a pretty decent gunfight in the museum between Phoenix and Spartan. John is getting his ass kicked in this like weird area that doesn't look like it's part of the museum, but I don't really know what it is. I just love how like Simon Phoenix keeps like monologuing for a good couple of beats before he actually fires his shot to kill Spartan, because it's like he could easily have gotten him if he didn't stop and say anything. You know what I mean? It's just, you could have at least made it so Spartan like gets out of the way or anticipates it or something. But like Phoenix just like rambling about stuff before he shoots is like, it's so cheesy. I don't know. So on the run, Phoenix encounters the head bad guy, who is Dr. Cocteau. You know, he's the guy that we see in this boardroom earlier in this movie. And, you know, he's talking about how important it is to, you know, for everything to stay the way it is and all this stuff. I don't know. So Huxley, Sandra Bullock's character, tries to remember key 90s phrases and use them, but she frequently fucks them up to provide some comic relief, which I guess is all right. I mean, it's pretty dumb, but whatever. They get back to the police station and they're trying to figure out what Phoenix is doing, and Phoenix is supposed to be tracking down Friendly at the behest of Cocteau, because apparently they, like, while he was under, Cocteau basically, like, programmed, you know, put a program in Phoenix's head that he couldn't kill Cocteau, and it's something. I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. This movie left me at a loss for words a lot. So all the restaurants in the future are now Taco Bells, because they say that they won the restaurant wars or franchise wars or whatever it's called. Friendly's gang, who is the revolutionary who, you know, is living underground, they happen to launch an attack on the Taco Bell where Stallone, or I should say Spartan and Cocteau and Huxley are all, you know, hanging out, and they're having dinner, and Phoenix meets with Cocteau, and Cocteau assures him that Spartan won't be a problem. Huxley and Spartan go back to her place to have what the future calls sex, but they're really just wearing weird virtual reality helmets, and she is very put off by his expectation of physical intimacy. Apparently they cut a lot of Spartan's daughter's scenes. Like, he keeps talking about how his daughter must be around somewhere and, you know, he'd like to meet her. And I don't understand why they didn't cut references to her, you know, or maybe do reshoots if they didn't want to do that, because he keeps referencing it and it's like it never comes back. You know, it's like it just doesn't happen. And so they basically cut it because it seemed like the daughter was going to be too close in age to Sandra Bullock, so it was going to be creepy to have them be, you know, like romantically involved and then have the daughter be like the same age as Sandra Bullock. So anyway, Spartan finds out that Cocteau is working with Phoenix. They're going to meet Friendly, you know, Spartan and Huxley and Benjamin Bratt's character are Alfredo Garcia, by the way. They go to meet him in this underground lair, and Spartan has a burger that he expects to be a beef burger, and it turns out it's made of rat, and he's like very put off by it, but he still says it's good. Friendly explains to Spartan and Huxley and Garcia that he believes in freedom and they're basically going to work together with them. And, you know, like they kind of understand what Friendly is all about now, and they realize that maybe he's not so bad. And we get a pretty decent chase scene. You know, they're chasing Phoenix and it's pretty cool. You know, like, Stallone and Snipes are, I should say, Spartan and Phoenix are, you know, in this autonomous vehicle, and they're, you know, like, there's a lot of intense shit going on when they're on this high-speed chase, and the captain is, like, furious with Spartan and Huxley, but ultimately does, like, nothing to stop them from leaving to go get Cocteau, and we see Phoenix then almost immediately order Cocteau be killed, and he gets killed, so Phoenix takes over, and Huxley is actually like, she's kicking some serious ass for someone who should have no idea what the hell she's doing. And she gives some little off the cuff explanation of it, but it doesn't really jive for me. Phoenix is going to defrost the entire cryo prison system, and there is a suggestion that Jeffrey Dahmer will be among the defrosted inmates, and this is why cryo freezing doesn't make sense. While you're in cryo sleep, it would not be like doing time, it would just be like time travel, it would just be like, you're not really doing that time. There's a big showdown in the cryo lab prison defroster dealy. Spartan and Phoenix are really fucking going at it. Like, it's not bad. I won't deny it. It's not terrible. They say Wesley Snipes has an actual black belt, and that was why they like basically made him like pull his punches a little bit and like kind of slow it down, because his punches were blurring in the camera. So like they didn't think it looked good and they wanted to fix it. And they finally, we finally see an end to, Spartan freezes Phoenix and smashes his head. So it's like they don't have to deal with him anymore. And, it's like we get a little wrap up scene and it's over. I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not amazing, but it's not terrible. So a little tidbit of trivia. Wesley Snipes hated his blonde dye job and shaved his head as soon as filming was complete. After the movie's release, professional NBA player Dennis Rodman began dyeing his hair different colors, a look that was inspired by Simon Phoenix. I didn't see any citations on that, but, maybe it could possibly be. So info and ratings, we got a runtime of 115 minutes, budget somewhere between 45 and 77 million, worldwide gross of 159.1 million, IMDb rating 6.7, Rotten Tomato critic score 62%, Rotten Tomato audience score 66%, personal rating 3 out of 5 stars. This was just okay. I didn't hate it though. I mean, it didn't disappoint me as much as Never Back Down did, but I would say a light recommend to Demolition Man and a hard pass to Never Back Down. It was not my idea of a good movie. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for tuning in today. I do appreciate it. So I'm going to keep plugging along. Hopefully, by the time this comes out, I will have released several video episodes, and hopefully you'll let me know what you think of those, because I think that they could be a good way to go for me. So, all right, everyone, have a good day. Brandon at Random Reviews is performed, written, directed, produced, and edited by Brandon Griffiths. Theme music is performed by Augusto Diniz from Fiverr.